All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all worlds. Peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and upon his family and companions. The walls of the house of Allah had been raised. After surviving floods, fire, and the ravages of time, the Kaaba stood rebuilt, its stones stacked high by the united hands of the Quraysh. But just as the monumental task neared its end, unity shattered. Look at this chilling scene. This is the Pact of blood. Tribal leaders, blinded by pride, plunging their hands into a bowl of blood, swearing an oath to the death. The question that drove them to the brink of mutual destruction: who would have the ultimate, immortal honor of lifting the sacred black stone and placing it into that final, gaping hole in the wall? Satan, the eternal deceiver, thrives in moments like this. Iblis was actively whispering into the hearts of these proud chieftains, stoking the fires of their arrogance. He was orchestrating a masterpiece of mischief, pushing them to slaughter each other and defile the very sanctuary they had just so painstakingly rebuilt. Peace was entirely suspended. Makkah was holding its breath. The holy city was seconds away from drowning in its own blood. To understand the madness that gripped Makkah that day, we must first pause and understand the object of their obsession. This was no ordinary stone. Why would grown men, the wealthy lords of Arabia, be willing to butcher their own cousins over a piece of rock? Because it was the Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone. Its origins are not of this earth. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would later reveal the majestic yet tragic history of this celestial jewel. In an authentic hadith recorded in Sunan at-Tirmidhi, the Prophet ﷺ said, "The black stone descended from paradise, and it was whiter than milk. Then the sins of the children of Adam made it black." Imagine the magnitude of this artifact. It is a physical, tangible piece of Jannah, paradise, placed upon the earth. When the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail alayhi salam originally raised the foundations of the Kaaba centuries prior, the Archangel Gabriel, brought this stone to Ibrahim to mark the starting point of the tawaf, the circumambulation around the sacred house. For the Arabs of Makkah, their entire identity, their economy, and their geopolitical superiority in the Arabian Peninsula rested entirely on their custodianship of the Kaaba. Honor to the tribal Arab was not just a concept, it was currency, it was life. To be the tribe that returned the jewel of paradise to its rightful place meant cementing your legacy in the annals of history forever. It meant that for centuries to come, pilgrims from the corners of the earth would circle the Kaaba and know that your forefathers were the ones who restored its heart. It was the ultimate, immortal honor, and it was an honor no tribe was willing to share. For 4 agonizing days, the construction of the Kaaba was completely suspended. The hammers fell silent. The chisels were dropped. The holy sanctuary sat paralyzed by human ego. The Quraysh had fractured into deeply entrenched factions. The fiercest among them were the Banu Abd al-Dar and the Banu Makhzum. When it became clear that no diplomatic compromise could be reached, the Banu Abd al-Dar brought out a bowl filled with blood. The Banu Adi joined them. Together, in a macabre, terrifying ritual, the chieftains plunged their hands into the bowl and licked the blood from their fingers, swearing a sacred oath that no one else would touch the black stone, even if it meant the annihilation of their own clans. They called it Hilf al-Dam, the blood pact. Let us understand the devastating consequences of what was about to happen. Allah explicitly states in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, "And remember when we made the sacred house a center and a sanctuary for the people, saying, 'You may take the standing place of Abraham as a site of prayer.' And we entrusted Abraham and Ishmael to purify my house for those who circle it, who meditate in it, and who bow and prostrate themselves in prayer." The Haram was a sanctuary. It was universally forbidden to shed even a drop of blood within its boundaries. Yet here they were, preparing to unleash a brutal civil war upon the very foundations of the House of Peace. If swords were drawn, Makkah would be ruined. The winter and summer trade routes, the absolute lifeblood of the Qurayshi economy, would instantly collapse. The neighboring empires, the Romans and the Persians, who watched Arabia closely, would see their chance to exploit the fractured tribes. The heavy, suffocating atmosphere in the city was absolute torture. Mothers pulled their children indoors. The elders wept at the impending doom. Makkah was staring into the abyss of its own destruction, waiting for a single sword to be drawn. On the 5th day of this unbearable standoff, a voice of desperation finally broke the silence. It belonged to Abu Umayyah ibn al-Mughira. He was the oldest living man of the Quraysh, a man whose age demanded immediate, unquestionable respect, even from the most hot-headed chieftains. He looked at the fierce warriors around him, his own nephews and cousins, ready to slaughter one another. With the wisdom of a man who had seen generations rise and fall, Abu Umayyah offered a proposal, a final, desperate gamble to save their holy city. He pointed his weathered staff toward the grand archway that led into the sanctuary, the gate of Bani Shaiba. "O Quraysh," he declared, "leave this decision to Providence. Let the first man who enters through that gate be our judge in this dispute. Whatever he decides, we will all abide by it." They agreed. But imagine the sheer, heart-pounding suspense of that moment. Who would walk through? If it was a man from the Banu Hashim, the Banu Makhzum would instantly reject him. If it was a man from the Banu Umayyah, the Banu Abd al-Dar would draw their swords. They stared at the gate, their hands still hovering over their weapons, waiting to see what fate, or rather, what Allah had decreed for the destiny of Makkah. The footsteps grew louder. A shadow fell across the threshold. He stepped into the light. Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him. The reaction of the warlords was instantaneous, historical, and deeply profound. The fierce, bloodthirsty chieftains who had just sworn a pact of death saw his face, and a wave of overwhelming, undeniable relief washed over the entire courtyard. History records their exact, spontaneous outcry. They pointed at him and shouted in unison, "Hajar al-Amīn, Radina, Hajar Muhammad. This is the trustworthy one. We are pleased. This is Muhammad." We must pause to truly absorb the magnitude of this reality. Muhammad, peace be upon him, was 35 years old. This was 5 years before prophethood. He had no army, he was not a king, he was not the wealthiest merchant, nor the chief of a major clan. Yet in a society deeply fractured by tribal warfare, classism, and ego, he was universally, unanimously trusted. Why? Because for 35 years, Makkah had never caught him in a single lie. They had never seen him act unjustly. He was known as as-Sadiq, the truthful, and al-Amīn, the trustworthy. He safeguarded their wealth, he honored his promises, and his moral integrity was absolutely immaculate. This moment is beautifully orchestrated by Allah. Long before he would stand on Mount Safa to declare the oneness of God, Allah was establishing him as the supreme, undisputed moral authority of Makkah. He was the only man in the entire Arabian Peninsula whose character was powerful enough to extinguish the fires of a civil war with merely his presence. They explained the dispute, the bowl of blood, the suspended construction, the terrifying impasse. A lesser man might have used this unprecedented authority to claim the honor for his own tribe, the Banu Hashim. A politician would have spent days negotiating treaties. But the prophet, guided by a wisdom that transcended human politics, acted immediately. He asked for a cloak. He spread his mantle upon the earth. Then he lifted the heavy, sacred black stone and placed it squarely in the center of the fabric. He looked at the fierce rivals and issued a command that would go down in history. Let the chief of every tribe take hold of an edge of the cloak and lift it together. What profound, breathtaking genius! In one sweep, he dissolved their bitter, venomous rivalry into shared honor. No tribe was left out. No ego was bruised. As they grabbed the edges of the mantle and hoisted the stone together, the tension evaporated. They were no longer enemies fighting for supremacy. They were brothers, united in the service of Allah's house. They brought it to the wall, and then, taking the stone with his own blessed hands, Muhammad, peace be upon him, pushed it into its final resting place. Satan's intricate plot was entirely shattered. The whisperings of arrogance and war were silenced by the profound, unifying wisdom of Al-Amīn. The Kaaba was whole once more. The dispute over the black stone teaches us a timeless, eternal truth about the Seerah. True leadership isn't about claiming the honor for oneself. It is about elevating everyone around you. It is about extinguishing the fires of arrogance with the cool waters of wisdom and humility. Through this event, Allah demonstrated to the Quraysh and to all of humanity the flawless character of the man he had chosen. The foundation of his future message wasn't just built on miracles, it was built on a lifetime of impeccable, undeniable trustworthiness. But as the Kaaba was completed and the city celebrated, Muhammad, peace be upon him, found his heart growing increasingly detached from the worldly noise of Makkah. He began to seek silence. He began to seek isolation. The whispers of the city were no longer enough. He was searching for a higher truth. His footsteps were about to lead him away from the crowds, up a steep, rocky path, toward a lonely cave called Hira, and the world would never be the same again.